Good morning everybody, and welcome to another personal project that's gonna be a little bit different. I have a very strangely specific fascination with seeing the same location in separate games, and as a Breath of the Wild fan, I've been loving just looking around Hyrule in Age of Calamity, trying to figure out where all the old landmarks are, how they've changed over time, and what creative liberties the developers took to reimagine them in a different genre. In this video series, I'll be walking through every location in Age of Calamity and its counterpart in Breath of the Wild simultaneously, showing off every nook and cranny I felt worth mentioning. Full game spoiler warning for both games, however, I'll be going through Age of Calamity's story levels linearly and deliberately avoiding info not learned till later. If you haven't finished Age of Calamity yet, you can watch as much or as little as you're comfortable. First, the opening cutscene. I'm not going to cover every cutscene, but this one is special. You've probably noticed this is Zelda's study, an Easter egg room found near the top of Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild where you can read Zelda's diary. This takes place 100 years prior, so while the room has already been damaged, much is still intact. Though, strangely, Age of Calamity's tower has a visible crack outside that doesn't exist in Breath of the Wild. Apparently, Ganon's been doing some maintenance. Most of the objects in the room are here, though not all objects are shared between games. For example, the bottles above the desk only exist in Breath of the Wild, and the potted Silent Princess only exists in Age of Calamity. The items that are shared are usually in significantly worse condition. Special shout out to this lone scrap of paper that practically disintegrated over 100 years, yet still managed to stay completely flat while hanging in midair. Also, strangely, the bottles on the same shelving the mini Guardian falls from are still there in Breath of the Wild, even though they apparently fall down over the course of the cutscene. Zelda's diary isn't open on the desk in Age of Calamity either, though it's presumably one of the books laying around. Apparently, in the 100-year gap, some Snoop showed up, read Zelda's diary, and stole her pillow. The most important object that's missing by Breath of the Wild is, of course, the box the mini Guardian fell out from. Obviously, they didn't plan that far ahead, but there's already plenty of boxes in the room to begin with. It'd be cool if they had the mini Guardian come out of storage from one of them to link the canon together more nicely. During the same cutscene, we also get to see the moment Zelda awakens her powers from a different angle. Though the cinematography in the original scene makes it difficult to see, the positions and poses of the characters appear to be nearly identical. Next up, the first level, Hyrule Field. Now that we're in a level proper, you'll probably notice pretty quickly Age of Calamity is smaller in scale than Breath of the Wild. On screen in both games is what seems to be exactly the same rock formation, with Link standing in roughly the same location. One's a bit farther away, isn't it? What I notice is the major landmarks are usually very similar in size to their counterpart, but the distance between those landmarks has been massively decreased. We start on the sacred ground, which can now be seen in its undamaged state. The pond surrounding it seems to have grown in the last 100 years. For a really obvious example, look under the northern bridge, where you can clearly see the water hasn't quite managed to exist yet. And I don't think I even noticed this in my original playthrough of Breath of the Wild, but present in both games, the symbols for Din, Nehru, and Furore are on the 3 Triforce pieces. South of the sacred ground, where Age of Calamity's first combat encounter takes place, there are 4 surrounding pillars. These are present in Breath of the Wild, but over the 100 years they've managed to split apart into 7 pillars. Time makes duplicates of us all. The giant flags on each side are present as well, sporting the same design. Many of these flags are seen throughout Hyrule Field, but these two seem to be deliberate direct counterparts. Here's the main gate into Castletown. Looks basically the same at a glance, just in pristine condition. But look closer and you'll notice some discrepancies. The door texture actually has a different design on it, and there are a different number of bolts. Even the ground itself is a bit different. The slope ends simultaneously with the side railings in Age of Calamity, but continues gradually in Breath of the Wild. Notice, however, that the railings are partially buried in Breath of the Wild, so this could potentially be explained by in-universe changes to the geography. Walking along the west path toward the quarry, it becomes clear the scale was not the extent of the changes. In Breath of the Wild, there was a pathway near the quarry leading to a side entrance into Castletown. This path simply does not exist in Age of Calamity. The quarry itself does exist though, and now can be seen as an actual quarry rather than just a collection of big rocks. The pathways don't match up exactly, but head south in both games and we'll pass by a large hill on the left until we reach the central tower and Hyrule Garrison ruins around it. The tower rises during the course of the level. If you pay attention, you'll see it comes out from directly below a fountain. Looking closer at the tower, you'll notice it isn't properly aligned. The platforms are in different locations in each game. I tried comparing the surrounding buildings, but the only landmark I found that I believe to be the same in both games is this other fountain. And while I couldn't find exact matches, buildings of this style, with stairs turning around the corner, appear in both games. Heading further south, we reach what I believe was the location known in Breath of the Wild as the Exchange Ruins. It's not explicitly labeled in Age of Calamity, but matches the name since it's a marketplace with stalls lining the sides and middle of the pathway. There's also yet another fountain that I believe to be the same one in both games. From here, the geography becomes much harder to line up. There's a bridge heading southeast to a bit of land surrounded by a river. I'm guessing this is a transplanted version of the bit of land immediately west of Dueling Peaks. There's even a tiny puddle that could arguably be Batria Lake. I haven't commented on the skyline till now since it's obviously going to be mostly the same, but that's actually kind of a problem. Scanning the southwest skyline, you'll see the Great Plateau and Colosseum ruins, which is a little weird since I assume the Colosseum was still intact at this point. Also, very weird, you see what looks like the shrine on top of the mountain in the Great Plateau, lit up in blue as if Link had already activated it. Heading north, we reach Mabe Village and the ranch, both essentially attached to each other in both games. It's a very badly kept secret, but the ranch branch's layout in Breath of the Wild is reminiscent of Lon Lon Ranch in Ocarina of Time. Age of Calamity adds details, making the ranch even more similar, with the buildings intact and the fence posts being replaced with ones styled just like those in Ocarina. As for Mabai Village, all that remains in Breath of the Wild are some stone ruins that don't match most of the Age of Calamity town. And while not directly related, I really must mention the Scarecrow here are wearing the same outfit as those in Ocarina of Time. And that concludes everything I have to say about Hyrule Field's first appearance. We will be returning to it later in Age of Calamity, but for now, let's move on to the second level, Road to the Ancient Lab, located in an area known in both games as the Breach of Demise. Small note that's a little weird, the script of the cutscene preceding the level implies the group is heading to the Hateno Tech Lab. That makes no sense whatsoever, since Hateno is in literally the opposite direction. However, Breath of the Wild does feature a small area north of the Breach named the Royal Ancient Lab, which is clearly the actual location the characters are heading toward. Within the Breach, creative liberty has been taken to an extreme extent, since the original area didn't lend itself well to a Musou level. The general terrain is different, and it now has a ton of extra pathways twisting within and around it, though the original pathways are still present. The Age of Calamity level features tons of man-made structures absent from Breath of the Wild, such as the outposts and scaffoldings moving up the Breach. Both games feature skull-shaped monster forts, though I couldn't find any clear direct counterparts. The first shared landmark I managed to find is just south of the level's beginning, Karak Bridge, which leads to the Breach from the east. You can't walk across the bridge in Age of Calamity, but the same major landmarks are visible, including several buildings whose ruins can be seen in Breath of the Wild. From here we head south. The pathway wasn't in Breath of the Wild, but there's a similar grassy hill, and the gateway entrance is marked with a large rock very similar to one in this same location. This southern part of the map is the area known in Breath of the Wild as West Hyrule Plains, now split apart by a large chasm to prevent you from reaching the rest of the map. Notice the same rock bridge extending to Mount Gustav. In Breath of the Wild, there was a monster fort surrounded by a pond. This has been revamped to be much larger in Age of Calamity, and is now a capturable Lizalfos space. Just off the west edge of the map is this small flooded area. Though it doesn't completely match, my best guess is this is where the Ridgeland Tower is located in Breath of the Wild. The same mushroom-like rock formations are present in both ponds, so the ones in Breath of the Wild are almost completely submerged. Speaking of mushroom rocks, you can also just barely see one of the tallest ones from the Thundra Plains in the background. And you can see more from the southern edge of the Thundra Plains just past the southwestern level boundary. Though the devs seem to have walked up the draw distance, they're only visible when you're so close the wall is almost completely blocking them. There aren't many landmarks on the inner eastern path, save for Zalta Shrine. While the shrine itself is absent in Age of Calamity, a Korok is hidden just behind a similar looking rock in the same general location, which I wonder whether or not may have been a deliberate reference. Near the center, the path splits in both games, with a low watery area to the south and a rocky area above it to the north. That's it for the level proper, but remember the Ancient Tech Lab? We might not be able to explore it, but we can see it during the level's end cutscene. The entrance pathway is surrounded by blue flame lanterns like those seen in other areas of Breath of the Wild, and you can even see a giant telescope on its roof. A similar telescope can be found on the roof of the Akala Tech Lab in Breath of the Wild. And with that, we finish both levels of Age of Calamity Chapter 1. The next episode will begin Chapter 2. Until then, please let me know what you thought of this video and how I might be able to improve the format for next time. This is pretty different from how I normally do things. And especially let me know if there are any landmarks or important details I missed. Before heading out, shout out to Commonwealth Realms similar comparison videos, linked in the description below. Full disclosure, I briefly skimmed one of them before deciding to make my own series, but will be avoiding watching any more for now to avoid making my own videos too similar, even unintentionally. And finally, special thanks to all Patreon backers, including all the bugs Yuki has killed: Andrew Cyber, RB Drock, Anon42, Zolin Zero, Chris Nate, Alexander Botkin, Anu Akrira, David 20 Covers, Vincent Hall, Vincent YT, Alex Nelson, Lady Ashley, Lively Leader, Blake Long, The Cracky Gamer, Luminescent Dragon, Jake Snilges, Baxoid, Z-Master, Praetor, Vaith. Whether we wanted it or not, we've stepped into a war with the Cabal. Rory Kelly, Lane Robert Leishman, Liddy Kitty, Jace Harsh, Crustacean Creep, Plum Sweater, Cam the Can 1, Nathaniel Kalita, Procrastinating Destiny, Epic Evan 921, Alex Likes to Eat, Yield Foreign, Ace of Heartsu, Rundum Goy, Misfunctional, Xander Kozak, Celestial Cookie, 8-Bit Misdreavus, Gusios, Alistair Echoes, Hey Game Champ, do you actually find it funny how I keep changing my username to random stuff every episode? Zoe, Multicore, Aaron Bailey, The Green Scorpion, Game Champ says trans rights or human rights, Jorb, KK, Boomboxy, That One Night 5, John Miller, SNS Main, Christopher Gunderson, Curbs D50, Brandon Jessup, Damian R, James Simon, Yop Alonzo, Wave It, Platypoo 115, Sans from Undertale, Chronosanthium, Dwaro 25, Blue Moon Von Idaho, Britface, The Nonchalant Nacho, Bragger Jester, Kid, Very Gucci, Blue Boo, West 450, Riley Anderson, Arcombs, Robbie Cohenstrom, Neptunian Baby, What's That Noise, drawn by AJ's Haha Funny Meme Name, Salty Sweet, Slowest Game of Chess, Black, Waiting for White to Move, Fabi, Officer Slard, Zith Aggle, I'm Game Champ, and I say I'm bad at video games, but that is obviously a lie, because I do some of the hardest gaming challenges. I love you, Game Champ. Sinique says hashtag landback. Sulfuric Boss, Mars Becker, Zandragon, Eric Barron, Zeril, Telmadro, IB Mackey, Fyra, Shadowfire 638, Silktoid, Amy Cable, Amphison, Admiral Ampersand, Sylvie Wayne Catgirl, a literal cat, Grand Nero, Chef RB, I'll take a potato chip and eat it. Good job, here's $5. Will Herida, Nora Hanna, Matthew Elliott, Handy Capable, Sound of Rain, Ryan Garvey, Milk Succubus, and Arcade. I'm sorry if I sounded off while doing the Patreon shoutouts. I knocked my tooth the other day and am in literal pain. Ow, 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 ow. Yes, it says ow, 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 ow in the script, but trust me, the ow is expressing a legitimate sentiment. Thank God I recorded the rest of the script beforehand and get out of my house. And also, yes, I know I didn't say the ow, 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 ow correctly there, but like, oh God, I'm not doing another take. Go.